Hey folks, Hal Shurtleff here with Camp Constitution, and you're looking at the famous 54th Regiment Monument, which is on Boston's Beacon Hill, right across from the State House. Yeah. And this monument honors the 54th Regiment, which was led by Robert Gould Shaw. And let me just read the little marker here. The monument. The Shaw 54th Regiment Memorial honors Colonel Robert Gould Shaw and members of the Massachusetts 54th Regiment who died in the assault on Fort Wagner, South Carolina, July 18, 1863. The 54th was the first regiment of black volunteers from the North to fight in the Civil War. On the back of the monument are inscribed the names of the members of the 54th who died with Colonel Shaw in the cause of freedom and union. The monument was erected through private donations and given to the city of Boston in 1897. It became part of Boston's African American National Historic Site in 1980. And the 54th Regiment trained in the Readville section of Boston, Hyde Park, and there's still one building left of that. Unfortunately, there's not much more. There's a little marker there. And there is a unit, a reenacting unit, 54th Regiment, and also the Colored Ladies, I think it was Colored Christian Ladies Society. And what happened was these men were promised full pay, and they didn't get it initially. It took over a year before they got full pay, so they refused to accept any pay. And there was relief organizations here in Boston that helped them until they got their money and their full pay. Now the sculpture, let me just read the plaque here, that the man who did this, Augustus Saint-Gaudens, who is known for his beautiful work on a $20 gold piece. The Shaw 54th Regiment Memorial, the outstanding tribute to soldiers of the Civil War, was created by one of America's foremost sculptors, Augustus Saint-Gaudens. Born in Dublin of a French father and an Irish mother, he grew up in New York and was apprenticed to a cameo cutter at 13 and studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. His best-known works include the Adams Memorial in Washington, D.C., General Sherman in New York, and President Lincoln in Chicago. His home in Cornish, New Hampshire, which I visited, is a National Historical Site. The setting for the memorial was designed by the distinguished architect Charles F. McKim. And there is a good movie that came out, I don't know, about 15 or 20 years ago called Glory, starring Denzel Washington. And also there's several books that are on the subject. One of them was written by an officer of the unit called a Brave Black Regiment. So when you visit Boston, make sure you get a chance to see this. And by the way, this unit actually, before they mustered out, before they went into battle, they actually passed in review here in Beacon Hill. And that's what you see here. And you also notice the angel over the men. Now we're looking at the back of the monument, and it says, below the eagle, the white officers, taking life and honor in their hands, cast in their lot with men of a despised race, unproved in war and risked death as insiders of servile insurrection if taken prisoners, besides encountering all the common perils of camp, march, and battle. The black rank and file volunteered when disaster clouded the Union cause, served without pay for 18 months till given that of white troops, faced threatened enslavement if captured, were brave in action, patient under heavy and dangerous labors, and cheerful amid hardships and privations. Together they gave to the nation and the world undying proof that Americans of African descent possess the pride, courage, and devotion of the patriotic soldier. 180,000 such Americans enlisted under the Union flag. And on the bottom here, are the names of those brave men who lost their lives in the 54th Regiment. And while most Americans will look at this with some pride, a great history here, I'm wondering if the social justice warriors who are so offended by our history would look at this as a sign of segregation and demand its removal. Anyway, this is Hal Shurtleff with Camp Constitution, and to learn more about Camp Constitution, visit our website, visit our YouTube channel, and you'll be watching this video on YouTube, of course, but we have other videos about brave black Americans. Hey folks, as I mentioned earlier in the video, there is a ceremonial entity, the 54th Massachusetts Company A, and this headquarters here in Hyde Park on River Street, 1295 River Street. And the organization that helped fund the soldiers for the first 18 months because they wouldn't accept the pay since they were offered, or they were told they would get full pay, same as the white soldiers, and they only offered them half, so they said, we're not taking anything. So the Colored Ladies Christian Relief Society was set up to help the soldiers. And this is here in the Hyde Park section of Boston, which is actually where they trained, just about a mile here from here in the Readville, Camp Meigs. All right, folks, now we're here in what used to be Camp Meigs, in Readville, which is a section of Hyde Park, which is a section of Boston. And this is a playground now, but during the Civil War, it was a huge facility. There was a hospital here, and the rails, plenty of railroads, and you can probably hear the railroad sounds of the trains in the background here. I'm told by some railroad buffs that at one point this was the largest railroad depot in the world, in the United States. It's a shell of itself, but there's still some freight going through here. And here's a memorial here to the units, the black units that trained here. Of course, a lot of units did indeed train here. The 54th Infantry, the 55th Infantry, and the 5th Cavalry, Massachusetts Volunteer Militia, dedicated to the African American troops who trained here and distinguished themselves in the Civil War, and to those who continued to fight for equal rights and equal justice. And since my last trip, I'm delighted to see that they put some historic markers. I'm not gonna read them all, but definitely worth a trip here if you're ever in the Boston area and you're a real history buff. And it has site of the Civil War training camps, and it has some plaques here to commemorate the 54th and 55th Regiments. Battle for equality. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, the 54th, in fact all of the black units, were offered equal pay from the whites, same as the white soldiers, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And there's a quote by one of the soldiers of the 54th. "We have fought like men, but we are refused the $13 per month. All we ask is the rights of other soldiers, the liberty of other free men." And they did eventually get their money. At Camp Meigs, African American men recruited to fight in the Civil War were promised the same pay as white soldiers, $100 at the end of service, $13 per month, and state aid for families. However, the Federal Militia Act of 1862 prevented equality, having established pay for African Americans at $10 per month, $3 less than white soldiers.